Welcome everyone, I'm Ivy Rivera. I'm a psychic medium, Italian era, walking out in a school called the Ivy League Psychic Academy. Today is compassion over passion. Talking about the difference between interacting with people, making decisions in your life, and having relationships with others where you're expecting to just get something in return versus actually coming from a place of unconditional love. Now, the first thing I want to explain about this is that unconditional love does not mean you don't have boundaries. Unconditional love should not be a dirty term. And we tend to look at it as a problematic approach to relationships. And that's sad. I think we've gotten really, really far off base with this. It's not discussed nearly enough. And what I find is that my students, my clients, have never really meditated on what unconditional love may even mean. So for homework, I would recommend that you guys do this, where you meditate, you think on, and maybe even Google unconditional love and see what comes up from religious teachings and what it is that spirit in your higher mind shows you about it. When I'm talking about unconditional love, I'm referring to us giving to others without expecting or demanding a payment. Unconditional love does not mean, again, that you don't have boundaries, that you allow yourself to be disrespected or abused. It is more about understanding that sometimes you are here on earth to be of service to others. Period. Point blank. So your payment is coming from the universe. Your payment is coming from good karma, from good juju. It's coming from health and well-being, manifestation and law of attraction working in your favor. That's your payment, and that's your only payment. So sometimes people either can't give back to you or they're not supposed to give back to you. We need to get more in the flow of giving without standards of receiving. Now, we instead live in an unfortunate society that abides by self-interest and greed. So we've got capitalist society here in America, we've got corporate America, we have a dog-eat-dog mentality. It's based on what I believe is really immoral standards of achievement and entitlement and greed. What we have sadly done is to take, and I think in more recent generations it's getting worse and worse, is that we've adopted that for ourselves on a personal note. It's not just the way the country operates or the way the government operates or the way our money system is. It's not about work and career. It's about now the way we handle ourselves, the way we handle our relationships, the way we raise up our children, and this very confined way of thinking about life with other human beings and animals and the environment and the universe as being about me and mine. I got to get for me and mine. And that's it. And that's all there is to it. I don't even think we process it anymore. It's a given that that's how we're going to be raised up, and we're going to turn into adults who do that and teach our children to do that. So we definitely need to look at a couple key areas today. That's what we're going to do, is break down 5 key areas that I find mostly my clients, my students, whether it be my own self or within my family dynamics, where do I see this the most? And these are areas where you guys can check yourself or look at others around you and maybe have a better understanding about sometimes why that energy is really clashing and not flowing and jiving. Let's talk about the 5 most common areas in question, and we're going to go from number 5 up to the most dynamic, most common, biggest problematic area, which will be number 1. Number 5, we need to look more at our prosperity level and say, is it possible that I'm broke or I'm stagnant or I feel that I don't have what I've earned in life? I should have more. Is it possible that I'm in this situation where I do not feel blessed or accomplishment because I'm not giving enough out? A lot of people are also feeling loneliness. They don't feel that they're connecting with other people, or other people don't appreciate them, or they just don't want to deal with others. That goes along with feeling or literally being broke. It is a sense of isolation, and it's a lack of achievement that could be coming from your unwillingness willingness to give to others. Let's look at number 4. Are you battling things like a heavy depressive energy? Do you feel restless and anxious, or are you agitated and irritated a lot of the time? You're basically dissatisfied in life in general. You can't maybe figure out why, but you maybe have a tendency to blame your circumstances or your lover or the way others around you are handling their lives, the irritations of the world. You're always waiting for something else to come and make you feel satisfied. This could be a sign that you have an entitled attitude and that you're ungiving. You're not sharing enough with others. The universe cuts that off really quickly. Number 3, look at how much you do give to others, whether it be your time, your attention, your energy, your finances, your support, your wisdom, whatever it is. How much do you give to others? And when you do, what are you expecting back in return? We need to figure out whether we're actually giving or if we are just giving to get. We're just giving to manipulate. I think of parents that use the act of giving support to their children as a tactic, a technique, a tool to twist the child, to guilt the child, to remind the child later, I gave you this, therefore you owe me. Okay, that is a toxic, common dynamic in families that we really don't want to hand down to future generations. It also makes me think of unfortunate marriages. I have a lot of clients with these who they come to me and they have a laundry list of complaints about their spouse, about their prosperity. And as I'm looking at this list, all I see is that their poor spouse is like left to the wind, to the elements of the world, gets nothing back in return. And that the client I'm reading is literally just riding them into the ground like they're a workhorse or they're a money cash cow. And it's like, this should not be. Your spouse, your lover is not there to just serve you. Be careful, especially getting into things where you want that marriage, you want that white picket fence, you want those children, you want everything, and you want it within a certain timeline, and you want to have a partner who has money to support you and this and that. You better make sure you're getting into that authentically. And what exactly do you plan to give? What do you have to offer this other person? So once we're all tied up in that, it gets awfully messy and no one wins, including the children. It's just not beneficial for anyone. And I think that's the saddest thing I see on a daily basis. I also see this with children doing this to their parents with, again, that cash cow mentality, expecting that your parents owe you something. You're really a liability for a very long time. And we don't live in a society that values our elders anymore. We just see our parents as super disposable. It's gimme, 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 and then move on. I think we need to look there too. How are we raising up our children as generation now, future generations? What are we instilling in them? And this isn't about you being a parent. This is about you setting a tone for your life, whether you are a parent or not. It takes a village. It takes a community to raise up a generation of kids. So set a good example in your own life for everyone around you, not just whether or not you have children, but how to properly give. Okay, we're missing leadership, we're missing reciprocity, and we're missing a sense of value for one another. And I think it starts there. Parents, children, marriages, these are big issues. We see the same thing in jobs. Are you working for a dead-end job that is never going to promote you, that promises you raises and opportunities that just never come? They keep being given over to someone else. They would rather fire you and hire someone brand new, cheaper. Where's the value for the employees and in the work system? Let's go to number 2. How many of you feel that you have some good friends you can count on? How often do you have a secret that you don't want anyone else to find out about, but you really feel you need to tell someone, or you need help in an area of your life and you're just looking for a trusted friend that you can go to who isn't going to make situations any more than what they need to be, make it worse? I think it's pretty rare to honestly be able to say that you have even 2, 3, 4 people that you can really count on that way. You're positive you can trust them. And I find this to be so unfortunate too. The question of whether or not you're a good friend. A good friend needs to be able to have compassion for the other person. We should be able to give love unconditionally without needing to tell someone else that secret or create drama or get something out of it, like get a little high out of it. And that seems to be lacking. Now, we expect this to be lacking in middle school and high school, but what I have found at 41 years old in my life is that I'm still surrounded by people who don't know how to be a good friend. Gossipy, backstabby, dramatic. I've had people who come in here for the academy and maybe they're here for several years and they're just constantly creating discord with others. They bring strife into the house and the rest of us are able to live as a tribe. We're able to be good friends to one another and support one another. But you've always got that one person in there who's just constantly stirring the shit pot. So if that's the kind of person that you are, you're not a good friend and you don't deserve to be supported. You need to earn that. And I hope that for everyone out there that we have somebody that we can go to, because that can be really hard to find. And it feeds that loneliness I was talking about earlier. There's so many lonely people out there because there aren't a lot of people with integrity, a moral compass that they're following. They don't have a lot of character development. And so we find it's harder and harder to be able to trust people and build friendships and bonds. Let's talk about number one. The area that we need to look at the most is how you handle your love partnerships. Now, we need to remember that loving someone is not a feeling. It isn't about goosebumps. It isn't about butterflies in your stomach. It's not about that rush you get. That's great. If that's there from the beginning, that's awesome. That's a definitive sign of attraction. But research shows that after 3 months, that starts to die down. After 2 years, you have to actively start working at it. I don't care how hot it once was. And ultimately what happens is that you are losing the fantasy of what this other person was able to do for you, how they were able to make you feel. You no longer feel on top of this world. They're just sort of there. They're just a regular person. And it's really important that we remember that love is a decision. It's an obligation. It's a commitment that you make to support that person, to grow, to take care of your own self, to help them when they need it, and to work as a team, a partnership. And I don't see that enough people are entering into relationships in that way. I think it's becoming less and less common. And I find that one of the most common questions my clients ask me is, my relationship is driving me nuts. I want out. I want to end it, but I stay. I stay because I can't tell if this relationship is really over with or if I'm broken. And I think that's very revealing because we often get confused in love when the charm has worn off and you're left with nothing but this other human being you committed yourself to. And it's gonna be work, just work, with maybe occasional perks from here on out. And when that reality sets in, a lot of people start to think, I picked the wrong person. This was never really it. This isn't a soulmate. Maybe I should go look elsewhere. Most people, I have found anyways, are entertaining other things on the side, blatantly cheating even. But what we really need to also do is look at whether or not we are broken. Is it possible that you're not broken as much as you need to mend some of your concepts, some of your ideas of entitlement, some of your character, to get to a place where you're more willing to give and to understand that this is a human being that also needs nurturing. But we need to be very careful, especially these days, that we don't enter into a relationship with someone else who's like that. So typically what I see is that you have one taker who finds another taker. Like attracts like, and they just take. Walls go up in time as the charm wears off. And I would say a situation like that could very well be broken in a lot of ways. We see other people being taken advantage of. You've got one person who's a wounded healer, has no sense of boundaries and overgives, and you've got someone who is like a vulture, and they chose that person. They lured that person in to be able to vampire off of them. Then we have these very unique relationships, and hopefully we can all maintain something like this, where we're both just honest and able to say, sometimes I'm broken, sometimes I'm whole, I'm here to do the best that I can for you. I have boundaries and expectations. I expect you to also give back and support me, and let's just work at it the best that we can. And if you can't do that, you don't have any business putting yourself on the market. We need to be careful in love. It's not about how someone can make you happy or get you what you want, a house or kids or any of that. I also want to talk to you guys about really assessing before you get involved in something long-term with someone, whether it be a job or a friendship or even a marriage or a relationship. Again, how much of a catch are you? What do you bring to the table? What are you there to give? That's kind of what gets you hired in the universe for a promotion. So be mindful. What can we do? A couple key areas where we can really affect our relationships positively and grow and increase our prosperity and character is to humble oneself. It's important to stop and to identify areas in your life where maybe you see other people as the enemy. Maybe you see other people as profit for you. Maybe you just have sort of a greedy or entitled attitude. You can't help it. You were raised that way. But we do need to correct that. So humble yourself. Okay, come back down to earth and correct it every time it comes to the surface. I would also recommend that you guys do shadow work. I believe that most people who are taking advantage of others aren't even aware of it most of the time. They just haven't worked on themselves. So they have a lot of dark energy built up, some of it even being generational. We have a couple free mini classes here on YouTube on shadow work, or if you go to the Roots Revival on shadow work. I would definitely recommend that you pay attention to your family, the society that you were raised in, the standards that you were raised in. How did you see other adults treat people? What influenced you? Take a good look at your history and how that may have programmed you to either settle for less than what you deserve or manipulate to get more than what you should. And last, but certainly not least, I am recommending to everyone that you have more of an attitude of gratitude. Get in alignment with manifestation, get in alignment with law of attraction. Make sure that you are able to take a look sometimes at the world around you and how some people are in really unfortunate situations, how maybe even your situation could be worse, and all the blessings that you have that you don't really take time to reflect on. And I just want to throw in one more thing here. A lot of people who feel depressed or isolated are often stressed over circumstances that they feel are out of their control. They feel disempowered ultimately. And I just want to make it very clear that regardless of your circumstance, to get your mind off of yourself and to focus on giving to others, I can guarantee is the key to your happiness, the resolution to that problem. You will forget your troubles and you will be able to energetically heal yourself by helping someone who really needs it. So instead of being down and out and moping, go out and volunteer. See where in your community or even online you can be of assistance to a movement, to people. Everybody has something to give. What you have to give. And just without question, go and offer yourself. Be of service to the world around you. And let's see if you don't become more uplifted just from that alone. Often I think people are sick exclusively because of that. When was the last time you gave something without a purpose? Love is 100% work. I love that. I like too how she said it's about appreciation. It's about appreciation, and that leads to more respect, because when we don't take enough time, again, with that attitude of gratitude, when we don't have an attitude of gratitude towards someone else, we just look at their faults. We just look how they're not giving us enough. They just irritate us. We aren't able to see their value. We don't appreciate them. And that does lead, I think, to a lot of disrespect. That's a great point. When you are that go-to friend, you're everyone's cornerstone, everybody comes to you. We are often the kind givers. And so we, again, attract people who need that. And they don't necessarily consider us. And so it can be scary and unfortunate, especially if you've stepped out and you've tried to share with those friends. You've expected those friends to support you, and they do spread your secrets around, or they take it as an opportunity to kind of get a high and have some drama. And it is really very, very heartbreaking. And it can hurt your soul so that you don't feel comfortable reopening, sharing with anyone new. And it can get you stuck in a cycle where then you are just always the only giver, because you can't help it. You still have all that love to give and that support to give. But I would really encourage you to up your game and increase your standards. And it would be best for you if you do have people around you that you can't trust. Pull your energy way back, conserve that energy, go give it somewhere else. There is a world full of need out there, and you deserve to get back. So I think that boundary setting is also key with that. From one of our members, Alex. So Alex says, my mother has always used material things and gifting them as a form of showing love. But it was the only way that she showed it, and it always got thrown back at me later in life. My spouse buys things for me, and I don't appreciate it because of my mom's influence. Because he also uses it like, what do I get in return for this? So when it's brought up, I'm not okay with it, and especially if it's used later as leverage. I love that. It's leverage. It's not a gift. It's really so important also to look at karma in all of this. When you're giving only to get something back, to get something out of someone else, you're giving to later be able to guilt that person or manipulate that person. You do have negative karmic kickback from the world around you. And it gets really disturbing to watch the level of deterioration in that individual's life. And nothing can rescue them. We are all responsible and need to be held accountable for whether or not we're manipulating others. We don't get, so for those of you too, who maybe have a martyrdom mentality or a victimhood mentality, and you say, well, I always give, but I never give anything back. Are you giving just to be able to complain about it? Are you the wounded healer? Is that what you're doing? Because you will get nothing but negative karmic kickback from the world around you. That's how manifestation works. That's how law of attraction works. So yeah, it can really be very damaging. I think that's sad too that Alex says it this way, that she now picked a partner, right, in her marriage that represents the unfortunate, I would say it's even somewhat abusive tendencies that the mother pushed onto her, where she only gave to manipulate. And then we tend to grow up with sort of psychology 101 stuff, right? And pick a partner who will then abuse us in the same way. So that's unfortunate, but it's also potentially wounding Alex's love language, because maybe Alex does have a natural love language where it would be nice. That's how she receives love, is by people doing things for her, favors or gifts or things like that. And that would be sad to think that that's her natural love language, but now it's been abused and deteriorated to this point where she can't trust that anymore. I think we need to look deeper at the areas of our lives where we suffer from this type of damage and work really hard to do that shadow work and bring healing to it, because we can't change at the core who we are and what we love to receive and what we love to give. And that's healthy. We just have to find a way to work it in properly with others. That's great. So I think that any way we can show our children an opportunity to be of service is key. One of the things we can do is to show someone who's maybe homeless, or if there's like an opportunity to volunteer somewhere, or if you see someone on the street and maybe needing assistance, anything, loading something into their car, whatever it is, it's important as a parent to expose your children to that, have them come along, or have them actually do it and you supervise it. And we don't say anything about it. We don't brag about it. We don't post it on social media. We had a couple kids out here in the parking lot yesterday who went up to our elderly neighbors. They're getting up there in age a little bit, and they had some bags of groceries and whatnot. And it's getting warmer. We're here in New York State, and so it was an amazing day, like 65 degrees. And so some of the neighborhood kids were out, and they went up to the neighbors who were getting everything out of their car, and they just took over. And they said, let us know anytime if you need help with anything. And I was just like, oh my God, it still exists. So these are my new favorite kids kids to watch in the neighborhood. It's a beautiful thing to just be of service and to not need to make a spectacle out of it. And I think kids need to see more of that. Well, a lot of people are, I think, abused, whether it be by society. Some of us have been praised. If you're white, if you've received certain privileges, if you maybe are wealthy, certain people are set up to be able to receive things like that easier. Others are so beat down by society, by standards, sometimes maybe within their homes or different systems, that compliments are almost felt as an offense, and it can get really difficult. That person has a lot of shadow work to do with that, and they don't always want to dive into it, and they also don't really understand that that's what it is. And so I think that they become very awkward, and it can get really oppressive. And that's unfortunate because we want to give love, but sometimes when you give love, it's taken in the polar opposite way, and you can actually push people away by doing that. So what we want to do is be very realistic of others around us and how they didn't all have the same walk. Some people will you should still, I think, give that love, give that compliment and support, but understand that your payout, don't expect anything from them. Like, don't expect anything back. It could actually be negative feedback that you get. However, I do really believe that people take those compliments back with them. Like, I think of little squirrels with nuts, and they go up in their tree, and when they're safe, they have that to eat later on. It is important that we continue to give, but just don't expect much in return. It is, but it's gotten blown out of proportion. A lot of people think that they're like a fallen angel, or that they're like an earth angel, or we've got this idea of light work or healing, and it's really become very out of whack. It's not that uncommon to look at someone's life contract and see that they are here to just give without reciprocity. It would be more common that you have a small handful of people who are destiny charted. You do have a work contract with these people, and it is for you to be of service. Again, your payment comes from the universe, but it's not really going to be all that frequent, and it tends to also, I want to say, not last incredibly long, unless you're looking at a situation where you're born into a family system where, for example, the parents are neglectful or abusive or have mental health problems or alcoholism, what have you. And we'll often see a child born into that system. That child brings light. That child is a healer. That child will set an example for the rest of the dark energy in the family. An example like a shining light, like a lighthouse for the lost ships at sea, for how to live. And that child often gets more abused than other members of the family, becomes the black sheep, and we see that they're never shown any kind of gratitude for any of that, but it can be incredibly difficult for them to see their value, and they may really deteriorate from that type of atmosphere until they reach a point where they realize, I'm going to have to set some boundaries with these people. Okay. And so frequently we see a child like that step up and say, I'm done with this. I'm going to have to cut these people off. I'm going to have to set boundaries where I'm not maybe getting sucked in, hoovering techniques where the family keeps trying to suck them in, often again by giving, offering support or money or whatever. And when they pull away, they get free and they see, you know what, this isn't a system I'm supposed to stay in forever. I was called to be there. I understand there was a purpose to it. I'm the shining light for this family, but now it's time for me to go. So even in those situations, these things do tend to be on deadline, and they're pretty strict. Yeah. So when people stay too long, we see again that negative karmic kickback. Got to get out. That's right. So I think that that's a great approach. Danny's talking about one of the things I talk about in the teaching. It's always spirit first. It's always light work first. It's always be of service first. And then worry about the money, worry about the payment, worry about the rest of it later. With boundaries, they should be set when they belong there without question. But there will be times where you feel there aren't supposed to be any kind of boundaries or reciprocity in the traditional way of thinking. And that's how you know you were sent. That's how you know the universe has sent you to give something. I want to use this example too upon closing here of people who come here to the Academy for years or come to me for readings and join my live shows and love getting back. But it's not uncommon for me to hear from them at some point years later, oh, well, I don't know. I'm just not getting anything from her teaching anymore. Like, I don't know. I think maybe something's wrong with Ivy or Ivy's changed. Is it possible you've given nothing? Have you ever donated? Have you ever purchased anything? Have you ever shared my posts on social media? Have you ever given anything back here? I didn't lose my anointing. Maybe you just don't bring anything to the table and now the universe has cut off your food source. We don't look enough. Do you treat your church that way? Do you treat your pastor that way? Do you treat other people that way? Feed me, feed me, feed me. And then all of a sudden there's something wrong with them. They're not feeding me anymore. We need to grow up. We need to start contributing. And this is the easiest way to start evaluating and be mindful in those 5 key areas that I mentioned. By the way, feel free to donate, folks. Plug. Okay, so hit that donate button, hit that follow button. Thank you, Polly.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Spirit. Thanks, everyone. See you soon.